Good morning and welcome to the Standing Committee meeting for Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. Council will be meeting in a hybrid format until further notice. We encourage speakers to continue registering and speaking virtually as there will be limited number of seats available in council chambers. Our first order of business is public comment. I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation, which are or may be before city council, and profanity will not be permitted. When you are called, please provide your name and neighborhood for the record. Our first speaker is Cindy Lee.
Hi, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
You can.
Amazing. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cindy Lee, and I previously attended one of these meetings about a month ago on August 20th to express my concerns about the new Flats on Forward development plan for right across our business at 5813 Forward Avenue, the quote, gateway to Squirrel Hill, as Councilman O'Connor refers to this location as. As a recap, my family and I own New Young's Oriental Grocery right around the corner from the get-go and have been around for the past 40 years. One of the reasons our small business has been able to operate for so long is because of our location. Our customers have easy access to street parking, and we have a loading zone right in front of our store for our truck deliveries. So you can imagine the worry we felt when, without any notice, we got told that planning to start this past summer, they will be getting rid of the parking and loading zone for around 15 to 20 months until the construction completes. The impact this would have on our business is enormous, as approximately 75% of our customers drive to shop and buy groceries at our store utilizing the street parking. I also went into deep points last time I was here in terms of the actual detailed consequences this, disruption to the parking would have. We are requesting the city to reevaluate the proposed plan and take into consideration the detrimental impact this will have on the livelihoods of hardworking small business owners to manage to make it through the effects of COVID-19 and are just starting to get back on their feet. I have tried to get in contact with District 5's office multiple times, specifically their chief of staff, Matt Singer, and their community director, but no one has been responsive and has replied back to my multiple emails and follow-ups and able to tell me what is going on or what possible solutions the district has come up with. The only person who has communicated with me and reached out is Councilman O'Connor after I attended that council meeting a month ago. But that has just been a brief one phone call and very brief emails where I'm still unable to get the answers to my questions, which is why I'm back here again this morning as my way of communicating with him and his staff. As a constituent of this district and someone who will be directly affected by these changes, I would appreciate any guidance on how I am able to get the answers I need from District 5 and who is in charge of managing this specific situation, so I'm able to know the latest and greatest current situation and updates and plan the future of my business accordingly. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Ronald Miller and followed by Naomi Mullen.
Dr. Ronald Lynn Miller, Bells Hoover, and the West End. Global Intelligence Society candidate for Mayor Pittsburgh 2021. Author, Global Intelligence, a fusion of 21 disciplinary intelligences. In the early 2000s, I became a member of the American Chemical Society and the Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence. In Pittsburgh, Astrobotic, it's really important, Whitaker, and now John Thornton connected with that. A council concern is coming apart, are we, or coming together? Council concern, what holds Pittsburghers together? What holds the U.S., us, citywide, nationwide together? I think that there are 5 threads of national USA and local Pittsburgh identity fabrics. Thread 1 is the U.S. and Pittsburgh governments, legislatures, executives, and judiciaries. Thread 2, the U.S. and Pittsburgh Armed Forces, U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, and of course the Pittsburgh City Police. Thread 3, the U.S. and 50 state universities, University of Pennsylvania outside of Philadelphia being one, and University of Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. Thread 4, U.S. cooperative materials makers, Pittsburgh material makers, which produce the stuff out of which the national and local materials thread is made. In Pittsburgh, PPG is extremely prominent in this, and more recently, robotics. Thread 5, the U.S. Corporative Abstract Code makers in Pittsburgh, Argo AI, very interesting and effective, I think. Mass Tech Digital, and many others, providing the programming increasingly that connects us. Threads 2 to 5 are basically autocratic. Our U.S. and Pittsburgh identities are overwhelmingly autocratic, and only one, the legislatures, executives of the governments, and the judiciaries is democratic, and it's in jeopardy. I don't think that there's anything more important than protecting the integrity of our vote and public comment, as far as reinforcing the importance of and extension of our democracy. But I think that number 3 thread, the universities, is the key hub linker in Pittsburgh and throughout the United States of America. I don't think the United States or Pittsburgh is unraveling. I think that would be extremely difficult to happen. There was a lot of hysteria, in my view, that is disseminated over the social media on one side or the other side, left, right. I dismiss that. I think that this 5-thread theory that I have about this, expressed in my upcoming book, Facts and Fabrications, that I disseminated through a global intelligence information network in 2020, really puts this very concretely. We are not in jeopardy of losing our country or losing our city. And there isn't anybody, in my view, who's more important than the council and the office of mayor.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Naomi Mullen, followed by Akuhana Halmaukina.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Shady trees, not shady deals. Oh, Naomi Mullen of Bon Air. What is going on with the sale of Bon Air School is criminal. When a policy is not only not followed, but is lied about for gain, it becomes criminal. That means that 2 violations in the sale of Bon Air School have occurred. First is noncompliance with policy. Second is that the lie is fraud and a criminal offense. If it were a simple big misunderstanding, as Cindy Falls called it, it should have and would have been corrected. Who is behind this lie? What is behind these liars? Why does this agenda continue? Why did Director Gallagher say that they don't want to retract the sale? Why would there have been a small private meeting with Gregory Development if community support was not needed? Why would it say in the resolution before the vote to sell the school that there was community support for the developer? It is criminal to lie about community support in order to sell the property. There is no immunity of government officials when a criminal offense is perpetrated. This may actually extend into collusion territory. The Federal RICO Act also addresses this deliberate type of deception. Sylvia Wilson, Pat Morsetti, Ira Weiss, Janet Burkhart, Jocelyn Kramer, Gregory Coyle, and the disgraced Anthony Hamlet need to all rethink the sale of Bon Air School. This continued deception in order to sell the school is a crime in progress. This myth of community support has been put into the public media. Misrepresentation has been on the radio, TV, and print news, and it's been echoed. Public servants and elected officials need to be accountable to property owners and constituents. My sincere, consistent request is that City Council create a resolution to block zoning change and support a green space to replace Bon Air School building. Do your part for the environment, reduce urban heat, reduce watershed to Route 51, increase green space to benefit all ages and stages, protect the children across the street at the playground. Let's make it wheelchair accessible. to allow those who have poor access to nature the ability to enjoy it. Tear down problem buildings, not safe, stable neighborhoods. You want to reduce watershed to Route 51, and this is your opportunity to help that need. Shady trees, not shady deals. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ikuhana Halmalkina, followed by Kathleen Brunetto. If you're speaking, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Greetings and good day. My title is Ikahana Halmakina. I'm the Grand Inca of the Iroquois Confederacy of Aboriginal American People, i.e. Indian. My comments today are echoing the sentiments of Councilman Deborah Gross yesterday. If this oversight of the funds is not reevaluated, I believe what you're attempting to do, which is help the American people through utilizing this $335 million of the American Rescue Plan, will miss its target. As she stated, you will be exhausting the whole fund without any sense of any type of oversight. You all basically, without Deb Gross and Anthony Coghill, voted to move forward with allocation of funds, not knowing and not having invoice, not even utilizing your normal procedures, just willy-nilly just giving these funds out. It's terrible. And so I think something more should be done. Although I believe you all are just going to continue business as usual and just do it anyway. I am echoing Ms. Mullen's comments, shady trees and not shady deals. Shady trees and not shady deals. And I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker that is with us is Ken Hager.
Hello, good morning. My name is Ken Hager. I live in the Duquesne Heights neighborhood and work downtown. I'm speaking today in favor of the pending legislation to affirm the city's e-scooter plan. Having worked downtown for the last 11 years, the new Spin e-scooters have provided greater mobility between the heart of our city and downtown and its nearby neighborhoods. The e-scooter program has helped restaurants and downtown businesses, which have struggled during the COVID pandemic, attract more customers due to this greater ease of mobility. It helps businessmen and women travel between meetings downtown without having to drive cars or order ride-sharing services, which further clog traffic in our city streets. The e-scooter program reduces emissions in our city and improves air quality. I'd like to again ask that council vote in favor of the pending legislation to affirm the e-scooter plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That looks like it exhausts our list of registered speakers, which moves us to our standing committee agenda. Would a clerk please take the roll?
Reverend Burgess.
Here.
Mr. Coghill.
Here.
Ms. Gross. Mr. Kraus.
Here.
Mr. O'Connor.
Here.
Mrs. Kell Smith.
Here.
Ms. Strasburger.
Here.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Lavelle, Chair.
Here.
8 members present.
Thank you. That moves us to our first committee of the day, which is Finance and Law, which is chaired by myself. Our first new paper is Bill 1829.
Bill 1829, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Charles and Deidre Edmond in the amount of $4,134.21 in settlement of a claim for damage to a parked vehicle from felled tree branches from trees on city parcel on August 17th of 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 1830.
Bill 1830, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of De Apollonia Engineering Division of Ground Technology, Inc. in the amount of $7,039.68 for expert services relating to a case filed in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas.
Motion to hold for executive session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It will be held. Bill 1831.
Bill 1831, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Finance to enter into an agreement with Frost Todd Brown LLC for legal assistance relating to real estate, public finance, and municipal law. In addition, said firm will be available on an as-needed basis to provide consultation services. The total cost for this project shall not exceed $150,000 over a 3-year period.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman Gross?
Yeah, I would like a little more information about this. Wasn't able to see it in the text file. Thank you. I see we have our treasurer, Mr. Anderson, with us. Would you please introduce yourself for the record and give me a little more background?
Douglas Anderson, Director of Finance. Yes, Councilwoman, this our current contract with the current firm is up in October, and this firm will be able to consult on tax matters, real estate matters, pretty much, and other public finance issues that happen here in the Department of Finance.
That's what the bill says, but could you give me a little more detail?
So, over the past year, we've had to consult the current firm, on issues such as if companies have to pay the payroll prep tax or local service tax for employees who work from home. There are current issues in real estate that I'd like the firm to help us out with, possible quiet title issues on properties that we sell to help speed up that process. Things like that. And also helping document some of our processes here in the department.
So we've been hoping for more capacity in-house for quiet title for 7 years. Is this going to get us a little more capacity?
I hope so.
You said it's been under contract already, and so you're just re-upping the exact same.
No, this is actually a different firm. The contract with the current firm is more zeroed in towards tax matters. This will help us also in real estate.
Okay, so
It's a different firm.
So
I'm
you are
sorry.
adding new capacities.
Yes.
Okay, so we should see an expansion of your quiet title capacity. Could you give us like a sense of from nothing to,
Well, currently it's taking a long time.
Hundreds, or I'm sorry, you could wait for me to finish my question.
I'm sorry.
So, how much quiet title are we doing? If you could give us a sense of scale on the previous contract and how much we might look forward to on the next contract.
We weren't doing any on the previous contract, and the number that we could do on this contract, I'm not sure yet. I've just briefly talked with this firm when we were going through the RFP process, and I had asked them if they do quiet title, and they do. So this will expand our ability to do that and help hopefully another way for us to speed up property sales.
So more than nothing is definitely better. Was all quiet title work subcontracted, so we don't really do any with kind of salaried employees?
No, that's all done in-house between, it's my understanding, that's all done in-house between our office and the solicitor's office.
So what we've been previously doing on quiet title, you could give me, not, you don't have to do it right now, but you could give me a sense of how much we had been doing in-house.
Sure, I can get
Right.
that for you.
Right, that'd be great. And then we'll still have that capacity in-house, but we're adding to it this contract.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, that answers my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Sure.
Thank you. President Smith?
Thank you. And I just a little bit on the same lines with Councilwoman Gross. I just am trying to understand if this firm has been available to help us. It's been taking an awful long time to get properties moved through the city's the real estate department. And we've had several people with the treasurer sale calling us, and and you've been copied on emails. And we've also had issues with taxes. So I'm trying to understand how, if they're so helpful, why we've had so many significant issues over the past years. And I do understand that there's been a director, you're new. I understand that there's been other directors that left and ordered equipment, and I understand all those things. I'm just trying to understand the benefit of this firm to the city. So I'll abstain today until you and I have an opportunity to talk.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention?
Abstention.
One abstention. Bill receives affirmative recommendation. That takes us to Bill 1832.
Bill 1832, resolution amending Resolution 261, which authorized the mayor and director of the Department of Finance to enter into an agreement with Con Ferry Hay Group, Inc. to provide actuarial services for the city to include the required quadrennial experience study at an additional cost not to exceed $45,000.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended. That takes us to our invoices. We need a motion to approve the invoices.
So moved.
Second.
I would now ask for a motion to waive Rule 11. We have two invoices before us that are above the $5,000 threshold. One for subscription and one to support our clerk's office.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Did we talk briefly just to say what they are so the public knows? You said what they were for the clerk's office, but what in particular?
Oh, it was, she asked what it was for the clerk's office. They were to support these very odd shaped storage boxes for our archivists.
And the other one?
Is a subscription
Caresoft Technologies.
to Caresoft Technologies.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion to waive the rule? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion is carried. Any further discussion on the bill? On the invoices, excuse me. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
One abstention, please.
One abstention. Invoices are approved. That takes us to our P cards. We need a motion to approve the P cards.
So moved.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? P cards are approved. That takes us to Public Safety Services Committee, which is chaired by Mr. O'Connor. First new papers, Bill 1833.
Bill 1833, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Safety to enter on behalf of the city into a professional services agreement with Video Security Detection and Automation, Inc. for equipment maintenance services to the city's X-ray security system at an overall cost not to exceed $52,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 1834.
Bill 1834, resolution amending resolution number 608, which authorized the mayor and director of public safety to enter on behalf of the city into an amended professional services agreement with the Center That Cares for the purpose of continued implementation of the Pittsburgh Group Violence Intervention Street Outreach Program at an overall cost not to exceed $9,010,417.
Motion to approve. Discussion.
Second, discussion.
I know there's a couple of council members that have questions. Some of this money is reimbursed from a couple years ago as well, and just sort of over analyzing the budget and going through and breaking it down. But I will pass it off. I know Councilwoman Smith had some questions.
Yes, I'm first going to defer to Councilman Kraus, but I do have, if that's okay, Mr. Chair, because I know he has some concerns, and then I'd like to have it back. Thank you.
Councilman.
Okay, thanks, Madam President. Appreciate it. Hi, Shatira, are you on?
Yes, I'm on. Can you see us?
Yeah.
Cannot.
There's
She's on Ms. Bicker's staff screen. They're all in the same room, Councilman. Look for.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, I see. Hi, good morning, Shatira. Thank you. So, this has been a bit of a debate among council members this week, just to have a better understanding as to the process by which the funds can be applied for, how they'll be distributed, how they'll be accounted for, what we may have already previously expended that we're now making whole, and the ultimate responsibility for the use of the funds. So I think instead of my going in with questions, I think what I would like to ask you to do, if you would please make your presentation. I'll probably take some notes to be able to follow up on some questions after you've had time to sort of present in a holistic manner to the entirety of council. So Shatira, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I know that Councilwoman Smith stated she had questions as well. Does she want to ask them now, or does she want me, or just leave it go?
I think we'd prefer that, so that we don't go out into the weeds, that you make your presentation as you would like council to receive the bill, and then we'll follow up with questions.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Thank
Councilman.
you.
So what we will talk about today is this contract, how it came to be, what this expansion looks like, dive a little deeper into the dollars associated with this contract, and then also talk about the operations of DVI and Street Outreach. So join with me over at police headquarters is Reverend Jones. We have who is our Director of Street Outreach, Sergeant Glick, as well as Chief Bicker's staff, who is up there behind me. So we'll, give you all a quick spiel of what's been going on with GDI and how these funds will be used. So one, we're happy to be in a space where we can even talk about expanding these operations. We've been in this space for a number of years, since I believe around 2016-ish, and we've been operating with limited funds, 1 year, then the next year looking for funds, and the next year. So this really puts us in an opportunity to sustain and grow operations. So we're blessed and we're very fortunate for that. So we're currently in a contract with a Center That Cares. We started that contract in 2019. So when you see that large number, and I know everybody's like, $9 million, what is that? Some of that money has already been used. There were funds accounted for 2019, 2020, and 21, and then the remainder of that will cover 22, 23, 24, and 2025 contract years. So I just want to, help people understand that this is not, $9 million all at once being poured into an organization. We have this existing contract with the Center That Cares, who's already been operating through the leadership of Reverend Jones, our street outreach operations. So we went into this contract to work with an organization who can help provide us street outreach workers to carry out the operations that Cornell will elaborate on a little later. So once the trust fund came in existence, the stock balance trust fund, and we have a ton of money in that trust fund, we will have, as the years progress, we know that we want to focus, as our councilmen who work very hard to make that happen, focus on violence prevention efforts in the city of Pittsburgh, and also working with our county partners to see what this looks like in the region. So with that, we are at a space where we want to expand the contract. So this isn't a new contract. I know a lot of people are looking at this as though it's a brand new contract. We are just expanding an existing contract that we already have. When this RFP went out in 2019, there were 2 organizations that applied for it. A Center That Cares was one of them, and they were that is the organization that actually received the contract. So everything that we do is through an RFP process, and there will be more RFPs coming down the line because there is a lot of money. We have millions of dollars to devote towards violence prevention efforts. So other community-based organizations will have the opportunity to apply for that funding. We cannot just simply give out money because individuals may have had a good working relationship with the city. There is a process that you all counsel and our finance and OMB and all the other parties that are involved, scrutinize very regularly to make sure that monies are being distributed responsibly. So also this is a reimbursement process. So we know that once we expand this contract, the money is spent and then we pay the contractor back. So I do want to emphasize that as well. So the money has to be there by the organization up front in order to actually receive these fundings. But so the money is used overall to focus on like this public health approach that we're looking at in our region. And it encompasses so many things, not just public safety, but health, social services, justice reform, things like that affect the overall well-being of the residents of this city. And I'm referencing region-wide, the people of this region, because we all know that violence flows within, in and out of our city proper. So the strategy cannot just encompass, what's going on in the city. It has to be a region-wide effort. So with these additional funds, we'll be in a better position to actually really sit down and identify the true problems and what to actually do about them. A lot of the work that we've been doing is responding, similar to what our officers do. Our outreach workers are responding to what's going on in the community. So with this expansion and the ability to fully capacity build and be creative with our problem solving skills, we are able to identify problems and really look at who is at risk to commit violence and be victims of violence, and what do we do about that, and developing strategies to effectively combat some of these issues and adopt them and employ them into the community. And I'm emphasizing that because it's so important, because that's where all of our other community-based organizations come into play. We already have a contract with the Center That Cares, so we're just expanding on that. But with this trust fund and the fact that there are millions of dollars in this space, we can pull in, and some of them have already been at the table. There are, and Cornell can elaborate on some of those partnerships a little later, but there are individuals who've been working with the city of Pittsburgh, our outreach workers, our police officers, who've been able to take the work that we've done as a collective, right, respond to grants and other RFPs to get money, a lot of money, to show that they are being impactful in this violence prevention space in the city. So this isn't a competing space. This is a space of collaboration. And with this expansion of this contract, we really can sit out and map out this violence prevention web, because once we start in 2022, it will be $2 million annually. And that's still not enough to make the impact that this city needs in violence prevention. But we're fortunate because there's more money in the trust fund. And so these other community-based organizations that have been working with us, and some that haven't, that we're wanting to come to the table, we have funding to support, their violence prevention efforts. And, whether that's schools, revamping things in community-based organizations. What does that partnership with youth athletics look like? Workforce development. I can go on and on and on. We're in a really good place right now for a lot of opportunities. And before, like I said, limited funding, we couldn't do that. We're in a space where we as a city, and I'm proud to say this, as the city, can really invest in these community organizations who are dedicated to improving the quality of life of the residents in their community.
So, yeah, if I may interject, no one is questioning the necessity nor the spirit by which the funds are intended. I think what members would like to see is maybe a more delineated breakdown as to what has already been expended that these funds will be used to reimburse. I think a dollar figure might be helpful. Then to understand what the balance is left, what application the center that cares is making for additional funding beyond what might already be due them, and then how much would be left to expend, and then what might be a application process for distribution of additional funds. Was that too much of a question? I'm sorry.
No, I tried to take a couple of notes. If I missed something, I'm sure you'll remind me. So first, going back to 2019, so there has been 100,000, roughly $105,000 devoted to this effort. And then we were able to slightly scale up in 2020. That took us to around $312,000 devoted towards this effort. And then here at the close of 2021, if this expansion happens, because it's voted on and all goes well, we will start to scale up November 1 of this year. So at the close of 2021, we would have invested roughly $90,000 towards this effort. And then in the year of 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025, there will be $2 million annually devoted to this. That will be used to hire more outreach workers. We don't have enough outreach workers in all of our districts to cover our neighborhoods. I mean, we've seen the way that, violence has plagued our area, especially, during this pandemic. And now we have areas where there were hotspots in these particular areas. We're finding that we need intervention in a lot more places than where it was previously needed. We're also saying that, the types of violence is changing in this area. And so we need strategies and people in place to help with that aspect as well. So when we talk about, people, bringing on more people and the types of violence changing, we also need to train individuals to be able to respond effectively to that, because they are police officers. And a lot of our, the people who do this work are returning citizens. For some of them, this may very well be their first job, but they do love their communities and they know who they've been in the community, and they know that this is an opportunity for them to give back and make a change in places that I can't reach, that our officers can't reach, that, other people can't reach, but they can.
Right. So again, no one is questioning the spirit of the funds. I personally happen to think that Reverend Grayson hung the moon. I think he is one of the kindest gentlemen I've ever had the pleasure to meet in my lifetime, and fully supportive of the efforts that he's putting forward and the funding that is necessary for him to continue the work that he is doing. I think myself and Council President Kel Smith, and perhaps even Councilman Coghill, although I haven't had a chance to have extended conversation with him, are being protective of the southwest of the river and wanting to make certain that organizations like South Pittsburgh Coalition for Peace and the wonderful work that Richard Carrington, Voices Against Violence, has been doing for decades, have an equal shot at application for funds, that there's an equitable playing field, if you will. I hate that terminology, but that they too, upon showing capacity to manage the funds, have an equal opportunity to make application for those funds and continue the work that is as desperately needed in Southwest Pittsburgh as it is throughout the city.
So there is a plan for that, and one that has already started. So we know that capacity is an issue, and not all of our community-based organizations have capacity. We don't fault them for that. So what we do is we try to we have started the process for our community investment grants. So organizations that might not have $200,000 just sitting, in the bank, if you will, they will have access to direct funds through these community investment grants. So we will be issuing RFPs for people to actually respond to that funding, and they can get the money directly through the organization that we're partnering with. So as we develop this strategy and figure out, where are, the other needs and how we can support them, everyone will have a fair chance to access the millions of dollars that are available in this trust fund. We can't do it all, nor do we have the capacity. So we need these community-based solutions.
Yeah, understood. So without oversimplifying and without taking any more time, because I know members certainly want the opportunity to chime in. I don't mean to oversimplify, but with these funds being deposited within a nonprofit, it makes application for organizations that may have less capacity to be able to make application for them, because then the funds are no longer reimbursable funds, and they don't have to have the funds to upfront the work that they're doing. They can apply for the funds available with a business plan stating this is why we're making application for these funds, and if approved, they can receive the funds directly.
Yes, and to add to that, we have people on our staff who will be devoted to the organizations that actually city staff, who will be devoted to the organizations that do receive this other funding, to make sure that the funding is managed well, to make sure they understand what capacity building is. Because again, we want to make sure that we're being responsible with this money. I stress that so much, because if we're not responsible with funding, funding goes away. And that ultimately affects our community-based organizations who they need their funding, to stay in existence. So not only are we making sure that we are, breaking down the barriers that are eliminating people to have access to direct funding, we're also making sure that we're providing them with some admin support to help them properly capacity build, because a lot of community-based organizations, unfortunately, don't know how.
One more question, please. You keep referencing other funds. I'm speaking specifically to the $9 million account. Are you, I don't mean to confuse things, are you arguing that the application for other organizations cannot apply for this specific funds, but there are other funds available by which they can make application?
Yes, there will be other funds available by which they can make application. And it is a complicated, I will try to simplify it as much as possible. So for this particular contract, we have a scope of work in which we're operating within. We know that a lot of our community-based organizations, they operate in spaces that fill needs that we have, but are not necessarily in the scope of work of this contract. So for instance, a few of the organizations that you named, they have very specific skill sets that we know will be very, very valuable to the operations overall. So we will make sure that through the Stop the Violence Trust Fund, that funding is available to them. It will be managed solely by their organization, meaning they don't have to go through a center that cares to get their funding. They will be the sole managers with city support of that funding for an operation that will fit in their scope of work.
I see. So is the $9 million deposited in the anti-violence trust fund?
It will
is
be.
not. It will be.
Yes. So this is contract is what it's from here to 2025. So as the trust fund grows, more money will be deposited into that. And as the trust fund grows, then we will open up the door to make more funds available and more funds available.
Okay.
And more funds.
Okay. I apologize for being a little dense this morning, but I just there's a lot of movement here, and I'm trying to understand all the moving parts. So going out the door today, again, not to oversimplify, would be about $600,000 that we are obligated to meet because those dollars have been expended. And then in 22, 23, 24, 25, there'll be $2 million annually that will be available for application, not only by the center that cares, but also other organizations will have a shot through RFP process to make application for that $2 million made available each of those 4 years.
Yes and no. So we've already paid a Center That Cares money for 2019, 2020, and part of 21. What's happening right now is that this $20 million this $2 million annually will be going to a Center That Cares to expand our current operations.
Okay. So those dollars, the 9 million over 5 years, roughly 6 years, including what we already have going out the door, and then 4 additional years will cover the 9 million. When you say additional funds available for organizations like Richard and Reverend Smith, those applications will come from other funds that are not yet available through our Anti-Violence Trust Fund?
It will be available very soon, and we are starting that process to create some structure for people to actually apply for those funds. And go ahead.
I'm sorry. And do we have an idea of the amount of monies that may be deposited for additional access?
Yeah, the exact figure or year amount, but the trust fund will grow upwards to $10 million. So this is just a small portion of the money that will be available to community organizations for violence prevention work. So it actually works in other organizations' favors to apply for this additional funding once we finalize that process, because they will have a little bit more management and ownership of their area in this violence prevention space.
So Shatira, do you have a possible timeline by which that process might be finalized?
We're hoping to have all of this finalized by the end of this year. It's a tall order, but I'm committed to it because there have been a lot of organizations who have come to us to say, this is how we can help. This is how we can help. Again, a few organizations that you mentioned, and they can help outside of our current scope of work. I keep emphasizing that because the way that the contract is written, if organizations are coming to the table, then they need to come to the table to do the work that we already do, which makes no sense. Therefore, utilize these other funds so that you can continue to operate in the area which you are an expert, but also is beneficial for this larger web of violence prevention efforts.
I'll end on this note, and I thank members for their indulgence and allowing me this amount of time. We have about 90 days till we have a new administration coming in. I don't mean for a minute to offer that a new administration would not consider this to be a paramount priority, but I would strongly encourage all of us to do everything that we can to have this in place before we see the new administration.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate your time, Shatira. You've been very, very helpful. And I want to say thank you.
You're welcome. I enjoy answering questions, so never think it's a bother. And if anyone else has any questions.
Madam President, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And then Councilwoman Gross.
And I actually do have quite a few questions, but I actually am going to make a motion to hold for a week so we can have some conversations. But the nonprofits that you're talking about that apply for the CARES funding, are they their own 501c3?
I'm sorry. I just want a little clarification.
Is CARES the conduit for these other nonprofits? Or are they their own individual 501c3?
CARES is their own individual 501c3, and they are who we currently have a contract with.
So I'd like to see the paperwork you have on those, because I've looked into some various groups that we've been allocating funding to, and I've been looking into groups that come here asking for funds, and I'm finding that a lot of them are not current on their 501c3s. They're not current on their federal 990s, which is a red flag for nonprofit fraud. So I I want to make sure that we're getting the right documentation for any group. I said this yesterday with the one Pittsburgh organization, and I've said it with others in the past. I want to see every piece of documentation that we're giving to nonprofits, that they meet these guidelines, that they have them current. And if they do not, I don't want to see that they filed yesterday to make them current. I want to see that they were current, because it's my understanding we're giving some funds and have given some, distributed some funds to organizations that are not. And I mean, I think that it's incumbent upon us as council to make sure that we're holding these dollars and holding people accountable for getting these dollars. I also like to see results in the numbers of reduced crimes, especially violent crimes in the city. And I'm not saying that, I'm seeing the increase. I'm seeing increased funding and increased violence. But in my side of town, I've mentioned this to Councilman Lavelle and Councilman Burgess. This organization's had meetings. I've not been included. They've had a meeting for the West End in the Hill District instead of in the West End. I don't know if they've talked to other council members here, but we are working as a body of 9 now. We're not working as 1 or 2 members. We're working as a body of 9. And I want them to meet with every council member. And every time that we come up for funding, we're promised that you'll come to the table and work with us. And then it happens again, and then you promise again, and then it happens again, and then you promise again. And I'm still waiting for you to meet with council members and work with us on, we have organizations. I'm getting emails from Councilman Krause's district that people that have done a tremendous amount of work in our city. I've known Richard Carrington for decades, and he has been working, he worked for free doing these types of events before it was something that people cared about. He cared. And so he did it for free. And so now there's actual funding, and I think he should be on top of the list for receiving not 150,000, but one of these millions. When I look at 9 million, I think this actually kind of proves Councilwoman Gross's point that we could take $1 million for each council district and fund who we think is going to do what we need in our districts. Not who you think, not who people come tell you, but who we think. And so I think until you listen to this council, I'm going to make a motion to hold this, and we're going to have a broader conversation about whether or not we move forward or not. I'll wait for motion. I'm not asking for a response. I'm waiting for a motion, or I'll wait for the discussion to make my motion for the other members. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have Councilwoman Gross, followed by Councilman Burgess.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I am interested in, Shatira, one of the things that you mentioned, that your current contract is asking groups to apply to do things that you already do or that you already have capacity for, and that you're looking to create an application for new things. But this isn't really my area, and as Councilwoman Smith said, this, it's not my area of expertise, and we haven't gotten individual briefings. So if you could give me a sense of the 2 or 3 things that are already, you feel, covered in the current contract, and how that contrasts with the new kinds of activities. I heard you mention some things about youth athletic leagues, about other kind of violence prevention or community investments, but I'm wanting something to grasp onto as an example of the kinds of groups who are already applying, that you feel, there's that first capacity that you've built, and then what are you said you've got inquiry from groups who wouldn't fit under that contract. So what kinds of things are they doing?
Some clarification, because I will take fault and if maybe I explained something wrong. So we don't have any groups that are applying. We issued RFPs for this particular service. And
it doesn't matter what, I'm sorry if I misspoke what the process is, but so what is the current activities or capacities that you have been doing with the current invoices that you have, and then some contrast?
So we have the contract, and again, we'll make sure that we provide you all of this documentation. We are really big on record keeping in public safety. Charles Showers is the finance administrator. He is wonderful. He keeps impeccable records. So anything that you are asking for, we can provide to you. We have only issued money to one organization in public safety. So we have two organizations. But we have all of that money, all of the documentation for those two organizations, Center That Cares and Operation Better Block. Anything that you need, we can
I didn't
provide.
need to, but the activities, you said there's certain activities that are included under under the contracts you've had, and that you're looking to expand that thing that is already happening. You said this contract only allows people to apply for things that we're already doing. And so you're looking for funds for new and different things. But I'm not hearing what the things are, and I'm really interested in that.
We'll definitely get to that, but I do want to clarify, there's no applying for this money in this current contract. The money is with one organization, but we do have organizations that are coming that have partnered, and Cornell will elaborate on this, but they're not actively applying for any money because right now there's no money to apply to. We only issued an RFP in 2019.
But you can't tell me what they've been doing and what you were hoping to do outside of that? Maybe we'll take this offline, maybe a briefing. I think Councilwoman Smith, you're right. We might be able to get to the level of detail that we're interested in. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't take up any more time.
Thank you. Councilman Burgess.
So I will indulge, if council will indulge me for just a minute. I want to have an inside-outside conversation. I want to have a conversation with the public and then come back to have a conversation with council. And I have spent, 20 years of my life or so professionally in various ways in this area. As many of you know, I'm the former director of education at the county jail. I've ran programs both in the jails, out the jails, a variety of programming, and have studied this, run programming, design programming in this area for the last 20 years. So I want to at least explain to the public, and then maybe this in at least what I think the vision should be, and then talk specifically about this bill. To the public, when you talk about violence and crime reduction, even though that phrase sounds like one thing, it really is not. It encompasses 6 distinct groups of activities. They are sometimes integrated, sometimes they are similar, but they kind of fall into 6 buckets of things. If you want to prevent crime, reduce crime and violence, there's sort of 6 things that occur. There are prevention programming. That is, you want to keep kids and young people from becoming shooters and criminals in the first place. That's, basketball activities. Those are prevention programs. Normally they take about 5 to 7 years to have great impact. That is, you're trying to keep a kid from becoming, when he becomes 18, violent. So you start investing in him at 7, 8, 9, 10. So when he gets to 18, he's not a shooter. He's not doing criminal activity. So the first bucket is prevention. The second bucket is intervention. That's actually micro-targeting a smaller group of people who are most likely to do crime. This population is already mostly subject to do criminal activity. They are the most at risk. They are already, many of them have dropped out of school. Many of them already committed crimes before. They are the most likely group to do shootings and things. Then the next 3 are really on the government side in terms of policing, prosecution, incarceration, right? And that's what the government mostly pays for. And in those numbers are astronomical, right? We don't really talk about them, but we probably spend somewhere between 2 to 3, well, at least probably more than that, somewhere between $300 to $500 million in the city of Pittsburgh a year on doing policing, prosecution, incarceration, right? The city police budget's $100 million by itself. The jail is $90 million. Human is $10 million. The public defender's office is $10 million. The DA office is $21 million. The budget of the of the state jails are $3 billion. And so I don't know, we could drill down, but I'm guessing if you put pensions in there and the cost of building things, you got to get up, you're going to get way over 200 million. It's going to be somewhere between $200 and $400 million annually. The cost of doing those three things: policing, prosecution, incarceration. Most of those dollars are not discussed. They just happen. They happen. They're in the budget. We spend it, and we know the results of those because that's what we funded. Because there's an HBO series called "Leveling the Playing Field" that talks about the tough on crime and how we put all these monies into these harsh things, and we paid for. We have black boys and brown boys primarily being locked up in jails in suburban communities. And then the sixth thing is reintegration, right? It is when people who have committed crimes come back home and then they have their own problems solved. So to the public, there are these three things that we have funded historically, and historically, including now, at the tune of $200 to $400 million a year: policing, prosecution, incarceration. So we also know that these other things, these prevention, intervention, reintegration things, we know that they impact violence on the ground right now. All right. So when we talk about these programs, we've never put more than maybe $500,000 or so into these programmings when, on the flip side, we're putting $400 or $500 million a year into them. So we're talking about, when in retrospect, very small. It's a different way of looking at the vision. So you need a couple of things. First of all, you need a citywide foundational intervention program. That's what the Center for CARES is. It is an intervention program. It uses former, community guys who have had felonies, who have been in, turned their life around, who have street cred. It provides services to that small group of kids that are mostly in young adults who are doing the shooting right now. That's the intervention program. So that's what the Center of Care is. It is the foundational, and it should be across the city. It actually costs, it would take really, to really do it right. We've always given it a small amount in pilot programs. To do it really right, you would take $4 or $5 million a year. But $2 million a year is a good level, a good foundation to do that specific thing. Then, on top of that, you want to layer other programs: prevention programs, reintegration programs, tutoring programs. All right. Now, the trust fund was designed to do both this foundational intervention program, right, for the Center of Care or whoever the provider was, and you need one provider to do that. Then you want to layer on top of that all these other community-based programming, midnight basketball or dance or social events, or all of the things that these individual community groups do. They should have access to these dollars. That should be in a separate RFP process that they can apply for. And $9 million is enough to do it a year, right? And so in my mind, those are the sort of two buckets of things that we need to do. We need to have a pot of money that we invest into this foundational intervention program that should be citywide. And then on top of that, we should invest in these individual community groups that may only be in Homewood or on the south side or on the north side. And there's enough money in the trust fund to do both things. That should be, in my mind, at least when I passed the trust fund, that was my intention, is to create these two buckets, even all in the trust fund, with these two pots of money. One for some organization to do the foundational work, or limited organization to do the intervention foundational work that deals with stopping the crime balance right now. And then another pot of money, which probably would be bigger, to do the prevention things that would be broken up to all the small groups across the city. And so what you see right now is funding for that foundational group, right? That $2 million a year for that foundational group that's going to do that intervention stuff. It's expensive because you have to hire these workers. The idea is to make them full-time, give them benefits. Right now, they're part-time. And so the idea is to have them full-time so they can devote their whole life to doing this. But then have a second pot of money that's RFP in one of two ways. Now, we can either, and that's what Shakira was talking about, some of our community-based organizations may not be able to access the money because it's reimbursable. So we may have to take back remaining money and split that into two pots, one to those groups who can invoice us back, and another pot for those smaller organizations who need, grants that are not reimbursable. So, and I'm willing to work with Mr. Krause. I think his comment makes sense. I'm willing to work over the next 3 months with you to figure out if we agree that's the vision. I'm willing to work with all of us and with Shatera to make sure that vision is carried out in that way. And so I want to thank everybody for letting me kind of talk about this. I think I think what I said was the right approach. If we can agree on the approach, then the rest of it becomes easier to do, I think. So that's my thinking. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Wilson?
Yes, thank you. I had just some questions about the structure. Can you, so we have two contracts that are out. You said one with the CARES and then the other one with Operation Better Block. Are they both, can you just tell me the reporting process and how it's overseen? Does it go from those organizations to Cornell, then to Shatera?
So most of the admin stuff, that's where I assist with. Operations wise, that's all Cornell. So, and he can talk about that.
And in our relationship, with Operations Block, that's really like the tracking and the being able to send out resources and the tools that we use to be able to send out to the people that we're serving on a regular basis. The tracking the numbers served, what areas that we're in, what are our hotspots that we're in, details of how many people we're serving, the resources that we need to send to the people that we're working with, both future and past people that we're working with. Risk assessments are being done and sent so that we know if we need to add more resources, if we need to talk to the GBI detectives and see what resources we need to pull, or if there's any supports that we need to bring as far as like law enforcement for like situations that might be happening. The other thing that one of the other things that Operation Better Block is bringing to the table through Tali is the jobs, the needs assessments for the community, what they need, and I think the special thing that they're bringing is together graphs of things that are going on in the communities. This is something that, believe it or not, this tool that we're utilizing through Operation Better Block is something that both Tali put together through CMU, and this is probably, we've been told that this is probably looked at as one of the best in the state. So our tracking has been taken to another level. Tali works hand in hand with me, and actually then works with our outreach workers who trains them on how to utilize the tool to the point where we're able to send risk assessments on a regular, and then find out what I need to then talk to the commanders about, if we need to try and see what type of supports we need to do to make sure nobody's getting shot, nobody's getting hurt or killed in any way, shape, or form. That's been the key thing that's been effective, that's been very helpful. I think it's important to know that, this is something that's extremely important for us to realize is that through this pandemic, the outreach workers have had to change a lot of strategy to make sure that they're being effective in the community because of, number one, safety for them, but they've done everything from feeding people to being able to, to give people resources so they can stay in school or computers and things like that. So they've been extremely strategic, and they haven't stopped doing what outreach does. So I really applaud, the level of intensity of them being on the front lines on a regular basis. The challenge of it, and I know you didn't go into it, but the challenge of what we're talking about is Pittsburgh has a little over 300,000 people that the last time I checked that live in the city, and we have less than 20 outreach workers for the entire city. So it's essential that it's needed that we bring on these people, but we have to bring on people that we know can be able to deal with the situations. Our team is amazing right now. We just want to bring on some more support strategically, and I ask you to please I look at you, I hope that you guys respect my expertise on who we're bringing on to this table to be able to deal with these situations. Because we're going into our 4th year, and it wasn't until COVID hit that we started having some issues. And now, things are getting better to a point where we're able to get together with people, places, and situations, so that we're able to get back down to some of those places that we weren't able to get to before. Now we're getting to the point where we're going to be able to get back in the schools. We're getting to the point where we're able to be back in the prisons and in the county jails, because all this is about relationships. And even though a lot of, I have people that do have like past records and stuff like that, these are people of influence that are extremely respected from the community, which is the reason that they're hiring. And I'm excited to be able to say that they're staying on because of the love of this program. We just want to give them some more strength and some more expertise and some more resources financially, so they can be able to do this more on a regular basis instead of doing a little bit of time here. We could be able to expand the type of support that they have, so they can be effective in an area where there's over 300,000 people and everybody expects them to be able to do everything.
Okay. All right. I appreciate the complexity of what's happening here. So I have a direct question. Do you believe in this app that you reference in terms of accountability for outreach workers that Operation Better Block utilizes? Cornell.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not going to talk to people from all over the state and actually even all over the country that deal with outreach. When I talk about what we have compared to the program, the apps that they're utilizing, they're amazed to the point where they want to connect with Talia on this stuff. So I believe in it, and we're actually honored to be able to have Talia Mix working on this.
Okay, sorry, it's just whenever we meet with people when they're all in the same room, it's actually, I apologize, it's actually difficult for me to hear some of what's being said. I'm sorry that gets lost in translation. Maybe in the future we can all get on the same. If we're going to do virtually, I don't know, I'd appreciate maybe another microphone in there or something, or split up on different computers. Yeah, I don't know if it's just the way the sound comes across when I'm in chambers. So what I'm hearing is that you said that you do believe that it is a good system to have accountability to use this app.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. So just there, I just want to know, is this something that we can build into the RFP so that the other organization also utilizes this infrastructure?
They want to know if it's something that can be built in an RFP so that the organization utilizes it, but they do.
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, everyone that works with us partners and even Reach who has the contract with us, that resource is available to them.
Okay,
so
can we get uniformity and a commitment I guess what I want to see is just some uniformity on how we're doing outreach. In a lot of ways, I would just want to, I'd like to see someone at the head, the brains behind it, and then someone's executing the operations, and then all the operations are consistent, meaning that the infrastructure is consistent. So I'm definitely interested in that. I want to move on to another question that I have. It's just, I'm not sure, I'm not sure how many full-time workers or part-time workers or outreach workers that are that exist in the groups. I'm sorry, in the nonprofits. I would like to know if will this allocation, will it result in people making a living wage?
Yes.
Like uniform across the board, that whatever it is, the hourly rate, the salary, that we're offering a livable wage.
Yes, sir, it will.
Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for first round? If not, I just wanted, to the extent that I can, quickly in sort of the 30-second version, summarize what we're looking to potentially do today. This is an extension of the current group violence intervention contract. It's moving that it's both paying for past services that have already been rendered, as well as expanding the group violence intervention program, the intervention work that our outreach workers are currently doing. What I heard members talk about was additional community groups, additional organizations within the community that also want to participate in some form or fashion as it relates to group violence intervention reduction. And we can certainly do that. We cannot do it with this contract because this contract has a very specific scope, that has already been employed and under contract by the city. What Shatera was speaking to is the additional funding that we're already beginning to design that will be able to go to all the other community groups across the city to support violence reduction. So I just wanted to be clear that this is a one specific thing, but we can also do the additional work that members were speaking about.
Thank you. And can I just say, I'm still going to make a motion to hold. Councilman O'Connor is going to call for a briefing. And I want to be clear. I think that most of us here think that Cornell is amazing. We think that a lot of the people that work on this program are amazing, but we want to have answers. We want to have conversations, and we want to know what is happening in our neighborhoods, in our districts, and whether or not this is an existing contract. The existing contract was with the Center of Cares or was with Cornell's Group Violence Intervention Program?
Center of Cares and Operation Better Block.
Operation Better was the original contract. Okay, that's what I make sure. So I think those things are things that we want to discuss, and we want to discuss how this program continues. And I think we want to know the agenda moving forward. We want to set the parameters moving forward. And we're going to have a little bit more control over the money that we are allocating into our neighborhoods, into the groups that are receiving it. And so with that said, I make a motion to hold 1 week.
Wait, second round.
Councilman O'Connor wanted to.
Second round, please.
Let's withdraw the motion.
A second round.
Okay.
Can you not hear me?
There's not a second on hold. So go ahead.
She had made a motion to hold. I'm asking her if she will withdraw that so we can continue second round.
I'll withdraw.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Second
you.
round. Councilman Kraus.
Thank you. Very briefly. Excuse me. I agree. Excuse me. I agree wholeheartedly with Councilman Burgess's summary of foundationally what we are looking to accomplish here. I would speculate that most members on the body agree foundationally with what it is that we are attempting to create here. I will, however, support the motion for the hold for briefing only so that we can have a more clear understanding of the additional funds that will become available, how we may expect those to become available, what that timeline might look like, what the amount might possibly be, and have a clear roadmap for the smaller organizations to make application for the distribution of those funds. I think we're 90% there, and I fully, gleefully support the work that is being done by Better Block and the Center of the Cares, and will not jeopardize their ongoing and continued support for anything, and that will have my vote. But I do agree with our president, and I agree with Councilman Burgess's summation, which he put together a little more succinctly than I was able to do, and that we do continue. We have full commitment and support to continue anti-violence measures here in the city. Just want to have a better understanding by which smaller organizations can make application for additional funds that will be available, how they will be made available, and what the application process for those funds would look like. Thank you for letting me do second round.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in speaking to the public safety director, I was stepping out and we were sending some text messages. I think we need some specific answers and not these long summaries so we can actually talk about what's actually in the bill.
Right.
So I'm going to make a motion to hold for 1 week, as well as setting up council briefings, hopefully based on what the director was saying, he would like to do it possibly Tuesday after council. So if some members are in person, we could also schedule separate ones for members that can set up a Zoom as well. So motion to hold 1 week as well as call for council briefings.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Thanks, everybody.
Any abstentions? Motion to hold passes.
Thank
It
you,
will be held
Councilman
for
Khan.
1 week, and we'll get that scheduled for hopefully by Tuesday. That moves us to Bill 1835.
Bill 1835, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of public safety to enter on behalf of the city into a professional services agreement with Operation Better Block for the purpose of implementation of the Pittsburgh Group Violence Intervention Street Outreach Program at an overall cost not to exceed $233,333. Said agreement shall continue the scope of services as provided in a prior agreement that was funded by a grant from the Hillman Family Foundations as authorized by resolution number 269.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 1836.
Bill 1836, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Safety to execute relevant agreements with the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency to receive grant funding from the U.S. Department of Justice's Emergency Federal Law Enforcement Assistant Grant Program to mitigate costs incurred in summer and fall 2020 by the city's law enforcement response while under a disaster emergency declaration.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? None. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended. That takes us to our Public Works Committee, chaired by Councilman Coghill. One supplemental paper, Bill 1876.
Bill 1876, resolution approving the recommendation made by the Director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure that the brick portion of Cambach Street be paved with asphalt in accordance with section 41706 of the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances.
Motion to approve.
Second, a very brief discussion, please.
Brief discussion, Councilman Cross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank members for agreeing to put this forward so it could be discussed today. It's a procedural step that needs to be taken. A very small portion of Brick Street on Cambach that cannot be repaired will be paved over, and part of the procedure by which we do this now is to bring it before council for approval. And so I ask for member support. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill is recommended. That moves us to our new papers, Bill 1824.
Bill 1824, resolution providing for an agreement with the Pittsburgh Public Schools and West Penn Allegheny Health System, Inc., granting right of entry for foot traffic of staff and students onto licensed premises to PPS during designated times and dates.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 1825.
Bill 1825, resolution providing for an agreement with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Department of Transportation for electronic access for Pennsylvania crash information tool at no cost to the city.
Motion to approve for brief discussion.
Second.
Brief discussion.
No, I didn't have any. I thought maybe somebody else might.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Councilwoman Strasburger.
Thank you. I guess I'm curious if we have had this kind of access in the past or if this is new for the city. I know that when we are working to make our streets and our intersections safer, we often rely on data for prioritization of which ones are tackled first and just ordering of, the priority list for capital budget expenditures and whatnot. So is this new information that we're getting, or is this information that we've had access to and we're just renewing a contract or an agreement?
I could speak to that with permission from council.
Thank you, Director. Yes, please.
This is Karina Ricks. I'm the Director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. We may have had this access in the past. I'm sorry that I'm not sure of that. We do not have it now. So by passing this, we will be able to get access. There is publicly available information, but this will let us get access a little bit faster and more thoroughly so that we can use that for those safety interventions.
And so this is going to be more detailed information than is publicly accessible? Or is it really just the speed of?
It's really just the speed of access that we're going to be able to get it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. President Smith?
Thank you. I just want to make sure that the public knows that we've been having conversations with the company and with Director Ricks and with the administration on the scooters. And I believe they're going to add some docking stations across the city, because I did bring up and mention how there are concerns, how the scooters are blocking handicap accessibility to a lot of people. And I'm sorry, not this bill.
Right.
Oh, I thought they were talking about scooter. I apologize. Next bill. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm coming with you, Councilwoman.
I just want to watch the conversation. Hey, we're taking care of it. That's what I want to say.
Any other discussion, Bill 1825?
What is 1825?
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Oh, no. Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Now we'll read Bill 1826 and 1827 together. Those are the scooter bills.
Oh, darn it. Okay.
Bill 1826, ordinance amended the Pittsburgh Code Title V Traffic Article 1 Administration by establishing traffic regulations for electric low-speed scooters consistent with PA Act 24 of 2021 and Article 16Q passed by the Pennsylvania General Assembly on June 25th, 2021. Bill 1827, resolution authorizing the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure to enter into a no-cost agreement with Skinny Labs, Inc. to advance an electric low-speed scooter pilot in conjunction with a mobility demonstration project.
Motion to approve for a lengthy discussion.
Second with discussion, please.
Second, Councilman Kraus?
Thank you very much. Director Ricks, good morning. Look at that smile on your face. I promise to keep this very brief. I do. We've been knowing this day's been coming for a number of years now. You and I have had a number of conversations about some of the drawbacks of having scooters. And I made comments at council yesterday. I am all about assisting with alternative mobility infrastructures. I went out for my morning walk today, and I bet you I saw no less than 50 bicycles on the road this morning, people navigating their way into work. I know Mayor Peduto took a pounding on creating bike infrastructure in the city, but it was right. He did exactly the right thing. It was difficult for some people to take to heart, but I'm beginning to see how it has taken root and how transformational it has been in providing opportunity for additional systems of mobility. So translating that to scooters, I have my reservations and I have my concerns. Every time we create a system, we have to find a way to create enforcement to accompany that system. And the enforcement of this, creating the scooter system, I don't believe should fall on the burden of the government or taxpayer, that the company itself should provide for its proper use and maintenance. And so I had the opportunity yesterday to meet through Kevin Kerr, who used to actually be chief of staff in my office, who's working with Spin, to meet with Brianna. And I had my I must confess, I had my comfort level significantly raised by giving the opportunity to express my concerns, my reservations, I'm in this thing where I'm going out each morning and walking, and no less than, any morning, there's no less than, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 scattered on sidewalks and, around. And I expressed my reservations to Brianna, and she assured me that systems are in place and better systems are actually being designed and implemented to create better docking stations for them, and to assured me how they actually have penalties in place for customers that do not return them properly. They are not permitted to be returned or left on a sidewalk. A photograph must be taken and submitted as to where you left that scooter. If you left it on a sidewalk, you will be penalized. And if you are penalized enough times, you will be deleted from your ability to use the scooter. We talked about creating some docking stations and how we could strategically place them for the best use and service to the customer. So I'm actually going to vote for these today. Surprising myself, but I'm going to vote for them today on the reassurance that there are systems for enforcement in place, and even better systems for enforcement that are on the horizon. And I don't want to be an obstructionist for what is ultimately proving to be a necessary addition to alternative means of mobility, especially for younger people. But I do stress, safety being a top priority. You can only ride these on streets that are 25 miles an hour or less. You cannot ride them through the Liberty tunnels. You can't go across the Liberty Bridge with them. And God forbid, I'm getting calls from people in Oakland where people are actually carrying their newborns and riding on scooters. You have to use common sense, for God's sake, please. Help us help you. But I'm going to go. I'm going to go with this. I believe that ultimately it is going to be the right thing to do. There's going to be some growing pains, like there were with bike infrastructure, but I do believe ultimately it has proven to be exactly the right thing to do. And I hope that in a couple years, I will be here, if I am here in a couple of years, to actually say that this was the right decision to make. So, Director, I sort of made comment. I didn't make question, but I certainly would open the floor for you to offer anything that you wish to offer.
I really appreciate that, Councilman, and your concerns. We and Spin, the operator, take these concerns with great gravity. Safety is the fundamental principle for DOMI. It's what we really strive toward. We do believe that ultimately these devices, while they are not without their risks, and common sense is required, as you, and please, I align myself with you, please, people, we do need you to use common sense when using these, but ultimately a 3,000 pound motor vehicle is quite dangerous in our city as well. And so we really want to promote these other opportunities. There is a deep equity concern that drives us in this. 1/5 of our city households don't have access to an automobile. Many of them live in places that don't have the level of transit frequency that the city once enjoyed, and we hope can enjoy again. But in the meantime, they provide really an important thing. That the trip through the Liberty Tunnel is distressing for the safety considerations, but it's also distressing to think about the level of desperation that somebody must have in taking such a dangerous trip. Just a couple of statistics, and then I'll be quiet, to understand where this network, and it's not just about scooters. These are one piece of an intermodal network that includes bicycles and motor scooters and shared cars and transit, of course, at its heart. Since our launch on July 9th, so it's only been a little more than 60 days. There's been over 156,000 trips taken on these devices. We're averaging about 2,800 trips per day. And in total, people have traveled over 228,000 miles in the city by a low or no emitting mobility choice. So this is important. Again, we really align ourselves with you that compliance is something we need to be vigilant on. The company, the city, the Department of Public Safety, and others are really working toward getting users to use it appropriately, comply appropriately. We do not want to introduce additional safety concerns. We do not want to introduce additional accessibility limitations. And we do need users to comply if we are to enjoy this new addition to our mobility system. So I understand and align myself with your concerns, but also thank you for the support.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Chair, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Coghill?
Yes. Director Ricks, just let me know, or if somebody is struck and killed on one of these scooters, taking it down Route 51, who's liable?
So everyone operating on our roadways has to follow the motor vehicle code. These devices are not exempt from that. So they need to abide by the motor vehicle regulations, but also so do motorists traveling. So Route 51, while we say that these devices are precluded from being operated on streets with speeds greater than 25 miles per hour, Route 51 generally within the confines of the city is posted at 30 miles per hour. Although we are looking to reduce that, as you know, there's safety concerns on that street as well. However, so we would dissuade people from operating on that. Route 51, however, it is not a limited access highway the way that freeways are. Bicyclists and other users are permitted to use the general purpose lanes of Route 51. Again, I would urge people to use common sense and don't suggest that that's a good place to travel by bicycle or any other low speed mode. But those travel lanes are general purpose travel lanes and they are permitted for use by all legal devices. Bicycles are one of them. We do have a local regulation. The state regulation says that devices could be operated on a street like that. This local one that you're looking at today would preclude them on them. If someone was struck and killed, it would be determined on essentially who broke the traffic laws as to liability. I'm sorry, that's maybe an unsatisfying answer.
Well, that's my next question is, do we have data from other cities that who were killed on these at all? Do you know?
There's been a number of different research projects. So there, as you know, there's 30,000 motorists that are killed per year in our country. There's far too many pedestrians and people using bicycles that are also killed, but they are a very small fraction of those that are killed by motor vehicle or in motor vehicles. I can't quote for you off the top of my head the numbers, but taken in proportion, the people killed and injured using these devices and other micromobility devices like bicycles or e-bikes are significantly less than people killed by or in motor vehicles.
Okay, now, Director, I'll tell you, I've been observing, people on the scooters. I love them. I mean, people, mostly, I believe, well over 90% of the people I see are using them for recreation and not modes of transportation to a job. And you are well aware of the challenges of my district as to if you work downtown, you just can't get there by scooter or bike for that matter. And we tried to, look into opening the Wabash Tunnel up for that, which would have been the answer, but we failed, of course. Port Authority is scared of the liability, which I don't blame them. So I find I told council yesterday about, a little street, quiet little street in Mount Washington, 2:30 in the morning, where I saw a group of 3 different cars and 6 young men who came just for recreation. They drove here from Murraysville, took up 3 parking spots on this tiny little street. And, they weren't out of control or anything, but they were just naturally loud and talking and, you know, it's again, it's right behind the library. It's a quiet little street. So everybody heard them. And not only that, the scooters were taking up 2 parking spots. I would just like to see these used more for recreation. And I think the docks are probably the most important thing, to have them on the streets taking up valuable parking spaces for me. I think it's frustrating my constituents. And again, they're on sidewalks, they're laying down. I've moved a number of them. I've taken a lot of pictures as to, you know, ADA accessible ramps that are being blocked and sidewalks. So, so I'm not convinced they're being used for the purpose of transportation for work. You know, so I want to keep them for recreation. I just feel like we're taking up valuable parking spaces, and we could dock them somewhere else where the people who want to use them for recreation can certainly go and use them. So, yeah, that's my comment. Other than, you know, I do fear a lawsuit is in the making. Whether we're liable, whether the company's liable, whether the people are at fault, doesn't matter. It doesn't stop a lawsuit from happening. So, okay, that's it. If you want to comment on any of that, please do.
The only comment I might make, council member, is certainly people are using them on occasion for just enjoyable trips. And again, I certainly we're not opposed to that. I think that there's too little joy in life anyway. So to let people have that opportunity is not a bad thing. Most of the trips are being taken for a particular purpose, though, whether it's to, you know, get to a friend's house or to park space. In your district, one of the key concerns, and we've been working with communities like Casa San Jose, you do not need to be a licensed driver to utilize the standing scooters. And we know that some of our people who are new residents to the city, new arrivals to the country, getting to the South Busway and the South Light Rail is something that we do want to make sure that we can extend the reach of it. That is, you are a very topographically challenging district. And so we have seen through some of the data that we've been tracking, and be happy to share that data with members of council and others, where the trips are originating from, where they are going to. And we do see strong trip patterns to and from the busways and light rail lines up and down those hills. Many of the hilltop communities, Belts Hoover, Allentown, and others are seeing concentrations of trips occurring. Knoxville in those communities, Carrick as well. So just a comment, yes, they are being used for pleasure riding on occasion, but access to transit is one, and the last mile connections is really one of the principal goals that we have with the program.
Okay. Do we have data on, do you collect data on who uses it for recreation?
No, we don't collect data on individuals that are using it, and we don't collect data, although we could run surveys. We don't ask people the purposes of their trips, but we do have data on where trips begin and end and the concentration of those trips, and we do have information on the routes, so which streets people are selecting for their trips. And as you know, there are a number of streets, I believe Route 51 among them, where we have geofenced, because all of these devices are networked up to sort of a central hub. Some of the corridors that are of grave concern to us, where we don't want people using these devices, East Carson Street is another. They are identified in that digital database. If a user arrives in some of those districts, the electric power will shut off. So it will become nothing more than a very heavy kick scooter in those areas, so that we can manage the use on some of these streets where we have concerns about their operations, Bigelow Boulevard, for example. So
Skinny Labs Incorporated is the company that we use. Is that right?
Skinny Labs is the official, when the company was formed, that is their official corporate name. They do business as Spin. So Spin is what is more commonly going to be used.
We know of any history of them being sued or, having somebody lose their life riding one? Is there any record of that whatsoever?
I have not asked them for that information. We can follow up if you'd like.
All right, that's good enough.
Thank you. Any other members? Councilwoman Strasburger, followed by Councilwoman Gross.
I think Councilwoman Gross had her hand up a little bit earlier than I did when Director Ricks was talking, so I'll defer to her first and I'll happily follow up.
It's always hard to get the chair's attention, even when you're in chambers and you're not in chambers. We should have like those little flags like at auctions or something. Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. I appreciate it. Sorry,
Next, I'm waving my hand, so you're good.
So, thank you, Director. I also had a briefing with some of these numbers, and I really appreciate it because, like Councilwoman Strauss and others have said, I have received lots of very similar complaints, right? Scooters where they shouldn't be, parked where they shouldn't be, cluttering sidewalks. I also represent streets and that are kind of destination streets and business districts where there's a nighttime economy but also just kind of a density of visitors. And so we see those rides that are, optional or entertainment for sure, absolutely. But I also see in the neighborhood streets many scooters parked in front of homes. And I think that speaks a little bit more. I haven't kind of traveled all around the city to see scooters parked in neighborhoods outside my district, but I do believe people are also using them to get to destinations that our public transit system just doesn't get them to, or gets them to that last segment of their trip. And I've explored the app that you've launched, transit app that adds those options to get you from point A to point B. We know that our Port Authority system, serves the whole county. And so in a way, it's not really perfectly like bicycle wheel spokes, but there is a kind of spokes system. And so it can be difficult to travel around the city if you're not just inbound to downtown or Oakland or outbound from downtown or Oakland. Getting to spots A and B, it's not really laterally, but like around at the center point is really not served very well or very frequently to the streets you might be trying to get to the home you're trying to get to, or to your own home. I have constituents who, just in their commutes, because of the timing, when service frequency drops off, walk from East Liberty to the top of the Stanton Heights Hill to get home. That's a long uphill walk. And this is a kind of option. Hopefully it won't be the only other option we add to our intermodal network, but it is an additional option. And I really do see those, in the mornings you can see scooters parked in front of homes. They were the destination. They were used to get people to the destination. So I really appreciate that as an additional option, either to get to transit or from transit or to some other mode. When you say they must obey traffic laws, I think we need to be more specific. Maybe we can do better in our kind of public learning. You have to stop at a stoplight. You have to stop at a stop sign. You're supposed to be in the travel lane or a bike lane. Do not go quickly down a sidewalk. Do not go down the sidewalk at all, right? And especially, you could have hurt someone going on a sidewalk. I've noticed that you've put out some kind of painted parking scooter areas in my district. Am I right? And I don't have a list of them all, but I encourage that these are helpful just telling people what they're supposed to be doing. So it's like a visual cue so that they know that's there. So when they're using a scooter, they know where to put it. We have congests our our destination streets, a lot of times, like God knows that the heart of the Strip District, even the heart of Lawrenceville, even at certain times the heart of Bloomfield gets very congested with all kinds of bicycles, with pedestrians, with cars, and now with scooters. So it's better to kind of maybe park and walk a little bit if you're not, knowing where to park instead of just abandoning your scooter in a very busy district at a very busy time. So I encourage more of that. But I am really impressed by the number of trips. I think I heard you say in 60 days, some 150,000 or so trips, many, many, many miles of trips. It's clear that people do need another way to get where they want to go in the city. And so I'm also going to be supportive today. And I think this is a learning lesson for sure. And on both ends, on our end, but also on the user's ends and on neighbors' ends, and how we kind of integrate this into our system. So I appreciate your efforts, and we'll continue to improve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Strasburger, followed by President Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Ricks, for being here today. I almost wish that a representative from SPIN were here too, because I think some of the questions that we're getting and from constituents are relevant for them to hear as well, but I'll look forward to talking with their representative at a later date. For today, I don't want to reiterate in a too long-winded way what has already been said, but what I do want to say is that one, I'm very supportive of this as this mode of transportation as a first mile, last mile connection. And I think the Move PGH platform and app is really wonderful as a way to connect people from various modes of transportation all together, all in one app. Great. I'm supportive of scooters generally as a mode of and a technology that we can use for that. But I will agree with all the different concerns that I've heard today. And you were very helpful in a briefing to me and to, that I know you had with other council members, addressing some concerns and allaying some fears about the use of this technology on our roads, and explaining the reason for these two bills that we're considering today. I do have some follow-up questions that I wanted to ask based on what I had already learned. So if you'll indulge me, I do have some questions. We'll take them one by one. I just want the public to be able to hear this as well. So one of the things that has come up again and again in today's discussion as well is the parking, where scooters are being parked and left. And there are, unlike Healthy Ride, there is the option to leave it really anywhere except certain locations. And we're trying to guide people into these painted corrals. And I've heard mention of docking stations for the first time today, which is wonderful to hear. I think that, this is one of the major learning curves that we're sort of getting a handle on. So as you explained it to me, if you see a scooter that is parked improperly, it's blocking a sidewalk, it is blocking a driveway, whatever, you can submit it either directly to SPIN, or you can submit it through a photo through our 311 system. And the important thing to get is the big 5-digit number to make sure that they can identify that that this was parked by the user in this way, because you have to leave a photo when you park it, and then you have to be able to stop your account from being charged. That you're verifying that this photo is the same, that actually matches what was submitted by the user. So I guess my question about that is to kind of further expand on what I understand the process to be. How quickly is SPIN getting out there to move it if that complaint is being issued? I guess is one question. People who are seeing scooters parked improperly, snapping a photo, but they're not necessarily able to move it themselves, either because it's too heavy for them to move it, or because they are a passenger in a car and they can't just get out of their car and move it, move a scooter they're seeing. What is SPIN doing to expedite that relocation of an improperly parked scooter?
Thank you, Councilperson. So a few things there. First of all, just maybe backing up a little bit. This is a pilot, and we are working with just a single scooter provider, which is Spin. This is different from what many cities around the country have done. And we've chosen to work with just a single one so that we really can iterate on these policies and on these operations with them and not have to chase down several other providers. So Spin has made a number of changes since in those 60 days since we've launched in response to some of the things that we've raised. So by permit, they are required, they are mandated that when a complaint comes in, they must move that scooter within 3 hours. We have penalties in that permit system if they fail to abide by that time requirement. There are penalties that we can levy against the permittee. Fortunately, they have met and generally exceeded that requirement. So they're really getting out there and moving those within 2 hours, and more often than not, within 1 hour. So they have a couple of different teams that go out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to go and address these. Having said that, we have only received 800 complaints. And I do say 800, not that that's a negligible amount, but we know, and you all have seen, and I've seen, that there is more than 800 incidences of non-compliance that have happened in our city in the last 60 days. So one thing that we would ask is actually to have the public assist us. You're not tattling, you're not complaining, you're helping us coach and educate the users to the right way to park and leave these things. And so, as you say, the right way that people can do it is to just snap a picture. They can snap a picture and send it in through our 311 system that gets immediately routed to Spin to address that concern. You can snap a picture and send it to Spin directly. You can send a picture and submit it. If you happen to have downloaded the Spin app or the Transit app, you can upload that. And that's actually the fastest way to get responses directly. Just open the app, take a picture, and then send it in. So 3 hours is their requirement. 2 hours is what they have been performing at or better than so far. Important when you take that picture is to there is a number which is on each and every scooter, unique identifier number. That is where the upright handlebar meets the horizontal platform. It's on both sides of the device. One of the iterations that Spin has done with us since launch is to actually make that number bigger so that you can now, it is easily legible. If you're taking it of a moving scooter that maybe is not the most focused picture, or if you're snapping it from a moving car yourself, or if you're snapping it from across the street, we've made them increase the size of that for responsiveness. So they have, as a result of those 800 complaints that we've received, they've issued 500 warnings for compliance. They've also, there is a 3-step penalty system to users for non-compliance. The first is more of a friendly education. Hey, do you know you can't park these really anywhere on the sidewalk? The second one is a strict warning. The third is actually a cash penalty that is levied to the user, and the fourth and final one is they are suspended from use if that same account continues to demonstrate non-compliance with the rules. Users, sorry to go on just a bit, but this is good time to share information. So people that encounter these devices, and as I go running and walking my dog around my own neighborhood, have seen it. People who are able can move them out of the way. I do it for the good of my neighborhood. They'll make a little bit of a noise at the beginning, but then it'll stop. But do suggest that before you move it, that's wonderful, and thank you for the Good Samaritan behavior. Before you move it, go ahead and take a picture and send it in again, because what we really want is compliance from the users to begin with. And that picture and that reporting helps Spin push that information back down to users so that we really can be the model city across the US for the one that really is able to get this right. So thank you.
No, thank you. So just a couple of follow-ups to that, and some feedback I received from people who have been, both moving them and submitting to 311 or submitting to Spin directly. Those who are submitting to Spin directly will get feedback from Spin saying, let's get that scooter moved right away. But the message that they get back doesn't come for 5 to 7 hours after they actually submit that comment, which makes it seem as if the scooter, even if it was moved 3 hours prior, isn't getting moved for 5 to 7 hours. So I think that's something for Spin to work out with their public communication around how they're enforcing this. And then another thing that I was told was that, and maybe this isn't true, but, and I haven't actually verified myself, but that the larger number that is identifiable in photos does not necessarily match the number that's near the barcode on the handlebars. That one's a 7-digit number and one's a 5-digit number. If I'm incorrect in that, then, we can clear that up, but I just wanted to verify that. In addition to that, Spin was also telling people who issued complaints directly to them that they said, to properly report a scooter, simply jot down the 7-digit vehicle ID number found on top of the handlebars directly below the QR code. So their communication back to residents directly, not from our 311, but from Spin, seems like it's older. It's the 7-digit code rather than the updated 5-digit code. So just, again, learning curve, something that we need to get a handle on, but that seems like it needs to be brought up to a level of consistency with what we're hearing. When it comes to relocating scooters, I understand it'll happen based on complaints. It's complaint driven largely, but also just a sort of like what Healthy Ride does, a sweeping of scooters, maybe occasionally throughout the day or maybe overnight, just to relocate them into areas that are more spread out throughout the city. Is that happening on a regular basis proactively? Are they only responding to complaints, or are they doing it proactively, and kind of what criteria are they using? Are there teams of people out there ensuring that scooters are just parked properly in the right areas, distributed across the city, all of that?
Yeah, so they are doing that both proactively and obviously reactively. Reactively because just like our police officers and everyone else, we have 300,000 residents that can bring eyes to a place. So often we'll see those incidences before the couple of teams that they have going around will. But they do have 2 teams, as I said, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that are going out and both responding to concerns, but obviously also trolling around the city and addressing those things that they see. They do, again, in the last 60 days since they launched, they have increased to 36 W-2 employees. So in other words, Spin does not use the gig economy. They use actual employees with benefits and everything else. They have 8 vans. 2 of them go 24 hours a day. The other 6 are really the nighttime redeployments that they're doing. So in the evening hours, late night, early morning hours, they will go around and collect scooters to redistribute them. We have a performance requirement, that 20% of the fleet be available in our low income, high need areas that we've identified. So if those areas are low, if the scooters have been moved out of those areas by users overnight, they need to collect the scooters and make sure that there's a good amount of availability in those high need neighborhoods, so that they're available there. They are usually the ones that are organized, all in a group, in a line, in a specific deployment area. We have gotten feedback about shifting around those deployment areas. And so again, we're working on sort of perfecting that with Spin. they do not necessarily touch every scooter every evening. That doesn't happen. They will go and redeploy and rebalance those where there's an overconcentration. If they see anything out of place, they will put those in the right place. They will collect and rearrange any of the scooters that have a low electric charge in them. And they will collect and rearrange any scooters that have just not moved from a location for 2 or 3 days, which are likely to be those that are placed in odd and unusual locations. So not every night, not every scooter, but generally within 2 or 3 days, they will touch every scooter in the fleet.
Thank you. My next couple of questions have to do with the safety component. And I know that Councilman Coghill asked for data around injuries, fatal injuries, but I'd actually just be interested in whatever SPIN is able to provide to us on just crash data in general. Crash data having to do with, that leads to injuries or death, if that's happening. The question was posed to me by someone actually who works with UPMC and said anecdotally they've been seeing a higher incidence of admissions to the hospital due to scooter usage. I would hope that people, consider bringing their own helmet with them as they're using these scooters, which is what I will do if I use this. But that being said, it's not mandatory. So be interested, I don't need an answer today, but in what the crash data is leading to injury and death nationwide. And another question that came up and a concern was the use while under the influence. So bar owners are actually worried about their own liability and whether they need to be restricting patrons who maybe have been customers at their bars from using these scooters. And I didn't know if there was the technology to add a breathalyzer, or some other method that we can use that we've seen success in other cities to prevent using scooters under.
I have not seen that. So again, generally, and all good concerns, again, going back to Councilman Krause's initial and very poignant admonishment to please, use common sense with these. They are devices that require a degree of balance when you operate them. We have problems with pedestrians under the influence making poor choices. So would encourage people who have had a drink not to use the devices. I've not seen anything that has a breathalyzer in it. We can certainly follow up with SPIN, but I suspect that that's probably not something that they've prototyped or are deploying.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. So per the regulations that we're passing, riders would not be able to use roads that have a speed limit of above 25 miles an hour, but they would not necessarily be restricted from the technology. Like the technology would not restrict them or stop them from going on those roads. They would have to just know themselves, I'm not allowed on Bigelow Boulevard. I'm not allowed here, correct? So
by and large,
they would not be stopped from doing that, but that's the rule that they have.
So by and large, not everywhere, because there's some places where there's some odd segments. But as I mentioned to Councilmember Coghill, those streets that are posted above 25 miles per hour, we have entered those streets into into a computer system. Sorry, my words are going to fail me because this is not my expertise either. But SPIN, as they have basically a digital map of the entire city, and there's a number of geographic areas that we have called out certain special rules for. So you cannot ride in one of our regional parks, for example. So if you wanted to take one of these devices, onto the paved trails of Frick Park, they would not operate. So it's not like the grocery cart at the grocery store that crosses the yellow line and locks up. It's not quite as severe as that, but the electric power cuts off. And so you can still push it, but it's significantly less enjoyable and doesn't go very far. So those streets that are posted higher than 25 miles per hour, many of them, not all, because there's some odd segments, as we mentioned, those are geofenced so that they, the electric power cuts off there, and any of the parks where they're prohibited, certain very, very dense pedestrian areas like East Carson Street, we've prohibited them. So the user doesn't necessarily have to know that. The device itself, because they're networked, the device itself will respond to those operating policies that we've dictated to them. Users may sense an odd thing as they cross over or near those restricted areas, and suddenly the device, loses power and they have to push it a little bit. And they might not understand why that happened, but it's because the device is responding to these geographic rules that we've set. Just quickly, a couple other things on that is that with the corrals that we've established, again, this is something that we've iterated with Spin on. We are now considered to be sort of the best in class. I know that might not be great comfort to some, but Pittsburgh is the best in class now in leading how we manage the parking of these devices, that we solidly prohibit parking on sidewalks, that we require them to be parked in legal motor vehicle lanes, which has turned out just fine in general. And that the introduction of these corrals in our commercial business districts, in many of them, not all of them, have we sort of flipped the switch yet, but we will soon. In many of them, you will not be able to end your trip any place except one of those designated parking areas. So you will need to take it. And we have a pretty high density of those corrals so that it still should be easy for the user, but it helps us organize the public space a little bit better, so people are not leaving these devices in our business districts that obviously have a lot of competition for space.
Thank you. Well, those are my questions. I don't have any additional questions. I'll just say, again, although it doesn't sound like it because of all of my concerns that I've heard many, many times from constituents who are concerned about this, I am in full favor of this mode of transportation. I do think that there's still a learning curve for users in Pittsburgh, for us as a city, for Spin working in Pittsburgh and its challenges. And we'll get there. We just need to get through it. But I really like to see some enforcement, and that's going to be determined by the number of people who continue to report. So I'll put out there for anyone who might be watching, the MyBurg app is a way that you can report through 311. If you download the MyBurg app, you can snap a photo of the scooters and report right away with your photo. But I really don't think that user behavior is going to change until we truly enforce and penalize people for improper use in parking. So I hope we can get there, and I'll be supportive today. Thank you.
Thank you, President Smith.
Thank you. I'll be really brief because I know that my colleagues here are waiting eagerly to move on for the day. And I want us to say, it's a little bit different here, sitting here, because it's cold in this room. So everybody's freezing. But and Director, I don't need an answer. I just want to first make a comment that the caller that called in earlier today from Duquesne Heights saying that he was supportive. I do want to make, and I think it's great that the businesses in downtown are benefiting, but the bulk of my calls of complaints about the scooters are in Mount Washington and Duquesne Heights. So I think it's great that they're a benefit, and I think that people are using them. And they came into my office yesterday with a lot of data. I was hearing you asking for a lot of data. I was surprised. Because I said, people don't want to hear about all the data. They don't want to hear all the statistics. What they want to know is how they can get the scooter off their sidewalk, how they can stop blocking handicap accessibility, and how they had some concerns about the charges and the fees, is what we got back from our area. and where the docking stations are. So my conversation is with them yesterday, the company yesterday. They are looking for additional docking spaces, places to put the stations. And what I said was during that meeting, just get it done. Just take care of it and do it. It's an old Bob O'Connor saying, just get it done. But anyway, but I just want to say, people don't want to hear all this other stuff. They just want to be able to live in front of their house and not have to worry about where, having all these things. It's the same thing with the bike lanes. People aren't opposed to bike lanes. People aren't opposed to scooters. They're opposed to you imposing upon their quality of life in their neighborhoods and for their businesses without having a real conversation, without, you can't just throw down lines and say you put in a bike lane and the heck with somebody not being able to park in front of their house or in a business. We have to have some conversations and real ways of working with the public. So with that said, I just want to know, one, is there any compensation to the city in the agreement? I just need a yes or no answer.
No,
Direct. No,
the city does not pay and they don't pay the city.
they don't pay the city and we do not pay them. Okay.
Correct.
And can you get us a copy of the agreement so that we can see what all was in it before final vote next week?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. And that's it for me. Thank you. But, I'm going to add real quick. Somebody sent me a photo, or they shared a photo on one of my social media sites. So just like bikes have been around forever, so have scooters. They shared a photo of a woman. I don't think you can see it from here, but it's from 1918 on her scooter. So I just want to say they've been around a while. Let's figure out a way to live with them peacefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members first round? If not, second round, Councilman Coghill.
Okay, thank you. Madam President, you asked the question I had as to, are we turning a profit? And the answer is no. Okay. And as to, like, when we go out and paint, is it us that paints the docks as far as the, imprint goes as to where to put the scooters, or is it they?
So two answers to that. One is that we do have some foundation assistance through Innovate PGH. And so for that initial deployment of those parking corrals, we used the foundation funding to do. It was done by contractors, so we didn't even use city staff, but we used that to do that. Secondly, the spin does need to set aside 10 cents for every trip that is made on a scooter. And that 10 cents is to go into the infrastructure necessary to make this a successful program. So that would be the continued painting of those lines and the continued infrastructure to support it. So just to get us up and running, we did it to minimize conflict. Going forward, they will be doing that.
So the ones that we have done already, we used our labor skills, out of DOMI, I guess, or Public Works.
We used Land Force.
We be reimbursed for that?
That was done again through Innovate PGH in coordination with the city.
Okay. That's it for me.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Any further discussion from members? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 I'll wait for the agreement.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
One abstention.
Bill receives affirmative recommendation. That moves us to our last bill of this committee, Bill 1828.
Bill 1828, resolution further amending resolution number 466 as amended by resolution number 50, entitled authorizing the mayor and director of public works on behalf of the city to enter into an agreement for the professional landscape architectural services for Homewood Park infrastructure upgrades between the city and Studio Zuid, $1,853,355.90 by increasing the total allocation by $168,486.90.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Bill is recommended. That moves us to Land Use and Economic Development Committee, chaired by Councilman Wilson. First deferred paper is Bill 1335.
Bill 1335, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code Title 9 zoning Article 1, Section 90203 zoning map by changing from RMH, multi-unit residential high density, to LNC, local neighborhood commercial, 16 parcels in the Allegheny County block and lot system, 12th Ward, and changing from R1DH, single unit detached residential high density, to LNC, local neighborhood commercial, 13 parcels in the Allegheny County block and lot system, 12th Ward.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion?
Am I, forgive me, am I on the wrong bill where this needs to be held? Oh, I'm sorry. Public hearing was held. Forgive me.
I should mention, public hearing was held on 5/26/2021.
Yeah, thanks, Councilman.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 1336
Read it out.
and Bill 1337.
Bill 1336, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code Title 9 zoning Article 1, Section 90203 zoning map by changing from RMM multi-unit residential moderate density, R1DL single unit detached residential low density, and R1DVL single unit detached residential very low density, R2M 2-unit residential moderate density, and RP residential plan unit development to EMI educational medical institution, 27 parcels in the Allegheny County block and lot system, 7th and 14th Ward. Bill number 1337, resolution approving a new institutional master plan under the Pittsburgh Code Title 9 zoning Article 2, Chapter 905, Article 7, Chapter 922, Chatham University Institutional Master Plan dated March 2021 on property to be zoned EMI Educational Medical Institution, District 7th and 14th Ward, Council District number 8.
Motion to approve, and I'm going to defer to the council person.
Second.
All right, Council Cross.
Thank you very much. I would actually like to make a motion to for a voice amendment to Bill 1336, the rezoning bill. As those who attended the public hearing heard, there's been a lot of work that's occurred between the time that the Planning Commission approved the rezoning, these two bills, the rezoning and the IMP, and today, which was about a 6-month period. And there was one little thing that did not get captured properly that I wanted to amend today, and that is in Section 3 of Bill 1336. I would like to strike the section in Section 3 that reads 1167 Murray Hill Avenue, identified as block number 85-K, lot 236. So that will no longer be included in this rezoning.
Need a second? Seconded. Any further discussion on the motion to amend? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any further the bill is amended. Any further discussion on either bills? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Both bills are recommended. That moves us to new papers, Bill 1837.
Bill 1837, resolution further amending resolution number 797 entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2018 Capital Budget, the 2018 CDBG Program, and the 2018 through 2023 Capital Improvement Program so as to reduce Cameron Welch Youth Baseball by $12,030 and increase Northside Youth Athletic Association by $12,030 and authorize a subsequent agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Bill is recommended. That takes us to Urban Recreation Committee, chaired by Councilman Burgess. One deferred paper, Bill 1586.
Bill 1586, ordinance amending and supplementing the city code at Title IV Public Places and Properties, Article 11, Parks and Playgrounds, Chapter 477, Permits and Fees, Park Permits Procedures, Fees for swimming pools, golf course, skating rinks, and other recreational facilities, so as to give priority to city residents for park facility rentals.
Motion to approve. Discussion.
Second.
I would defer to Ms. Smith, Council President Smith.
Thank you, Councilman. I just want to say that we have an amendment in front of us that we'd like to amend. Basically, what we're just doing is telling the director to come up with a reduced fee schedule for our city residents in our parks, because our residents are paying the park tax and yet they are not receiving a discount when they rent. They get to pay the same fee as people in the suburbs and other places that use our parks. Well, we want to make sure our residents who are paying that park fee have some benefit to them as well. So we've just directed the director to come up with the fee, because we were going back and forth with the law department on various wording. And so, and they've been helpful, and Lori in my office has been very helpful, but I want to make sure that it's just done more quickly. So the director is going to do it. So with that said, motion to amend.
Second.
And seconded, any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The bill is amended. Any further discussion on the bill as amended?
Yes.
Council President Smith?
Thank you. I just want to thank the co-sponsors, Councilwoman Gross, Councilwoman Strasburger, and Councilman Kraus for co-sponsoring this with me, because I think it's something we all want to see our residents getting some benefit for their tax dollars. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended. That takes us to our last committee of the day, Innovation Performance Asset Management, chaired by Councilwoman Strasburger. Bill 866.
Bill 1866, resolution amending Resolution 321 of 2021, a resolution amending an agreement with EDOC Technologies for licensing services and maintenance and support services to correct the total not to exceed amount for the 3-year extension.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. That ends our agenda for today. We do have meeting announcements. This afternoon with sessions at 1:30 and 2, council will hold a briefing on the Stormwater Code Ordinance update as it relates to Bill 1720. Next week, council will hold the regular and standing committee meetings on Tuesday, September 21st and Wednesday, September 22nd, respectively, at 10 a.m. Speaker registration closes at 9 a.m. the morning of these meetings. Also, next Tuesday, September 21st at 2:30 p.m., council will hold a cablecast public hearing on Bill 1720 as it relates to the Stormwater Code Ordinance update. Speaker registration closes at 12:30 p.m. on the 21st. To register to speak at upcoming meetings, go to the council meeting webpage and fill out the sign-up form in its entirety for the registration deadlines. You may also call the city clerk's office at 412-255-2138. And I would just like to remind all members to please submit your recommendations for the Citizen Police Review Board. Any further discussion from members? If not, need a motion to adjourn. Approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting, excuse me.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned.
Thank you, Councilman.